Good morning. This is an important training in my view. I'm Richard Asmus, the organizer for Bold New Democracy and also Cincinnati Indivisible Rapid Response Team. And part of my work, as I've said it to be, is part of the events team in Bold New Democracy, and my own leadership as best I can is to do trainings. It's so important that we keep getting better at our skills and our ways of connecting and strategizing and planning. So to have training sessions every other Saturday morning at 10. And it was so wonderful 2 weeks ago to be working with David Akajian in that how to do the Facebook ads, and that's progressing in an exciting way. So we're here together, and with great gratitude for me and for all of us, for you, Faith Gingrich-Goetz, the leader of the Southwest coordinator for our future, to help us understand and learn the secrets, but also the framework. Some of us don't have not much experience at all with some of these social media tools, and but to learn this, particularly in my view, for how we can make a political difference with them. Certainly you can use them for entertainment and for connecting, but how to really be more powerful as political people. So Faith, thank you so much for doing this. Lead us into this deep learning about the social media tools.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Richard. So to start out, I'll share my screen in just a moment, but I just wanted to let everyone know we'll be going over the basics of social media activism and organizing on social media, and then we'll be delving in a little bit deeper. It could potentially run over the hour-and-a-half time slot, but just so you know, like, duck out when you need to. But for those who want to dive a little bit deeper, we'll be speeding through some parts and going back and going a little bit more in depth at the end. So without further ado, so this is social media organizing and activism. And there we go. So I think that this page from Acronym's Digital Organizing Toolkit, which is at the end of the slides, and I'll make sure that I get all of the slideshows shared with everyone. But this tool, I think, is really good. The Acronym's Digital Organizing Handbook. It's about, I think it's about 40 pages long, and it's a PDF, and that's something that I would really recommend everyone who wants to take this pretty seriously and dive in pretty deep to this looks at that. But one of my favorite pages from it is where they lay out that all of our work as organizers in general should come back to 3 objectives, which are building communities, engaging communities, and activating communities. And I think that's something that, I know Richard always, ingrains in us that we should activate things and have power. And so I think it's important to remember with social media in this day and age that there should still be a human connection. It's still about building communities and being as personal as possible on social media and making sure that it's still something that feels authentic in some sort of way. And so with this, there are some best practices to do on social media, and there are ways to be authentic while still being safe. And so we'll go into some of that. So I want to throw out that what we're talking about right now is more about digital organizing versus digital marketing. So we'll still touch on some of the marketing aspects, but digital marketing is more aimed at getting a profit. It's saying, okay, this is what we want you to donate to our campaign or to our club or to XYZ cause. And then digital organizing is more about building these authentic relationships to build power. And I think that there does exist an in-between that we often have to live in, especially currently, where we don't have the option to meet in person, that we're having to sort of blend the lines of this a little bit. But I think that there does need to be a clear distinction that the majority of this training is not about how to best advertise. It is about building relationships and building collaboration and whatnot. So like I said, authenticity is very important. And so authenticity plus strategy plus good content is what builds a strong online relationship. And so by I am struggling to say that word. By authenticity, it doesn't mean that you should be totally personal, especially on public forums, but it is about making sure that people know that there is a person on the other side of these social media interactions. You know, I'll be using Bold New Democracy's Instagram a few times coming up as an example. And I know that Dan and I, Dan Lanzalotta and I tend to run it for the most part. I know other people also contribute, but that is something that even though we're putting forward very professional content and what I like to think is good content most of the time, there still needs to be an element of a human being on the other side. And so strategy has to do with that, with knowing when is it best to put forward photographs and videos of real people, and when is it best to use just a visually good graphic. And so I think that that's something that we'll get into, that you should always try to have a good mix of both. And this is both in your personal side and on the organizational or campaign side. It's good to try to have as much variety as you can. And so social media should always have, to build and engage and activate your audience, you should always aim to accomplish one or ideally all of the following things. You should try to educate them, inform them, entertain them, and build power by the end. And so educating your audience, an example of a social media post that educates someone could be about something that they don't already know about. So it could be, it's not trying to inform them of something that they need to do. It's just saying, hey, if you don't already, so one that I did for Human Rights Campaign was just a basic post of, here's what sexual orientation means. Here's what gender identity means. Here's how we get into what transgender means for those who don't know it. It's not about getting someone to do anything from it other than learn. Whereas informing has more to do with, you're informing someone because you want them to take action. So informing someone has some overlap with build power. I think we've seen a lot of this recently, given the change in the primary. That's a good example of social media posts that are informing someone and having a call to action for them, saying, okay, I'm informing you that because of COVID-19, the primary was changed to April 28th. Therefore, I need you to request a ballot, send in your ballot so that your vote is counted by April 27th. And then entertainment is what I think we're all the most familiar with on social media. And this is, you know, we want our posts to be entertaining for our audience. We want them to be fun. We don't want someone to just see our post and be bored and scroll right past. And there are multiple ways to be entertaining. Some things that are entertaining are educational, are informative. And, you know, I think that people go to social media not just for the fluff nowadays. And that's something very important to think about. And in terms of building power, like I said, this has a lot to do with a call to action. You're using social media to create change, to influence someone. You know, there's a reason why people whose job is social media are called influencers. And so, you know, Richard and I talked a lot about this, and a good example of this is we all have the power to make a difference on social media in terms of an action-based thing. You know, we all have the ability to put out information about the primary and change the number of voters that are turning out. And so that's something to remember, is that there is a lot of power behind the screen. And so when talking about which platform is the best to use, it's good to know who's on which platform. So we're not going to dive too deep into Facebook, but overall, Facebook definitely has the most people. Pardon me. Facebook is about voters and your personal network. Though Facebook also has some of the best business-oriented tools, it also is where most of us go for our most personal connections online. And then Twitter is more about shaping the narrative among press, public officials, and organizations. Overall, Twitter is a much more professional platform. We're seeing a slight shift in this, as we've seen more kind of meme accounts get a lot of traction, and seeing the rise in popularity of GIFs, which are like moving pictures. We'll show some examples. But overall, still to this day, the majority of the people on Twitter are people looking for information and more professional driven information, or more professional driven content. And then Instagram is similar to Facebook in terms of the personal networks built on Instagram, but one, it's much more visually oriented. We'll get into that. Instagram is for visual storytelling, but also it tends to skew younger than Facebook. Not much. I think that there is a, we'll get into some of the demographics, but there is a false sort of sense that only older people are on Facebook, and that is shifting. The largest demographic on Facebook still is younger millennials. I believe it's like 27 to 35 is the largest demographic. Whereas Instagram, it does, I believe the largest demographic is about 18 to 30. And then TikTok, we're not going to get into it. I don't think it's something most of you would be interested in, but it skews younger than Facebook or Instagram. About the oldest people you'll see on TikTok are usually about 30, but it's great to know of for your children and grandchildren. There's a lot of great organizing happening on TikTok. What TikTok is just short videos. They have to be less than a minute long. Most of them are less than 15 seconds long. And so if you hear that, that's what it is. So in terms of Facebook, just some quick stats are, there are 2.45 billion monthly users. And this is from, I believe this information is from 2018. Okay, I was slightly off on the ages. It's 25 to 34, make up 29% of the users worldwide. So another thing to keep in mind with all of this is most people are now using social media on their phones. So we'll get into how to make a visually appealing post, but what's very important to remember is you have a much wider screen on your computer than you do on your phone. So as much as you can, it's wise to stick away from horizontal images any longer, and it's much more, it's much better to use vertical because that's the way our phones are oriented. Some people turn it sideways, but most people don't.
Faith, there is one question before we get too much further. It goes back to your reference to building power. And the question is, in the context of the social media, can you explain a little bit more about what your definition is when you say to build power? And Susan, if I didn't get that right, please jump in.
Yeah, so what I mean by that is having action-oriented steps rather than just trying to create content. When we're organizing in person, you know, when we're going door to door and canvassing, or when we're manning a booth, we have a call to action. We have something that we're asking people to do. And that's something that you should really aim to still do on social media. Have something that's going to create a, I hate to say statistical change, but a more concrete change that can be calculated in some way. You can look at it and say, because of X post, Y happened. And it's something that you wanted to happen. So I think just going back to the same example of, because I posted this information about the changed primary, use the link to the website for people to send in their registration, or because I created a visual graphic that did that, from my post, I can look at the analytics, and we'll get into that, and know 25 people liked this, 45 people engaged with this post, 3 people commented on this post. And because of that, you can conclude that someone likely voted because of your post, or someone might even comment and say, I didn't know that. You just want to create posts that you're able to ask someone to do something and know that it's going to create, or hope that it's going to create real change. I hope that.
Might it not be clear just to say call for action rather than build power to avoid, I mean, if that's what you're actually asking?
Yeah, I think that it can also, I like calling it just call to action, but I think that there are ways to build power that are more about relationship building, and those aren't necessarily what people think of with call to action. And so I think that that's the difference that I make.
Pardon me for interrupting, Faith and Susan. I like the word power. I'm getting more used to it, not power like a dominator, but the power to make a change. So for example, if there is a policy or a new law in the Ohio State Legislature and we're making a difference and we rally and get people and organize and give testimony, and that, wow, and this happens occasionally, not so much in such a gerrymandered state, but that is power then. We are influencing or changing a law. And I believe it happens a lot. So the action is kind of the tactic or the movement towards. The power is actually making the difference. You know, we can take the power, for example, Jamie Castle is running in District 2 against Wenstrup. There were some of us that were reaching out and talking and encouraging and making, who's going to run against Wenstrup? That for me is power, using this to convince a young woman to say, hey, I will step up. We don't want nobody to step up. I will step up. The actions were reaching out and encouraging. The result is power, because here a person did step up. That's influencing a candidate that was making a difference in District 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Did that answer your question, Susan?
It's fine. I just think the others were sort of action-oriented, educate, entertain, inform, and building power was a little more nebulous, but you explained it. I think it just needs to be clear what you mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get it. So getting back, Facebook is by far the best place to organize in general because so many people are on there, and also because Facebook allows you to do a lot of things. You can create events on Facebook, you can join groups, you can message people. So if you want like a separate Facebook training sometime, that is its own massive beast. But like I said, there are different things. My quick tips on Facebook are to join existing groups, be an engaged member of those groups, message the admins to introduce yourself, build relationships, and then post relevant content. We all know the person that just goes through every progressive group that we're in Cincinnati and just posts when they want something from you. try to be an engaged member of groups. When you see other people posting, like their event that they're hosting, comment on it and say, sounds great, whatnot. Be a good person. It'll take you a long way on Facebook. Pages are a more professional sort of thing. So with pages, there's a lot more tools that open up. For example, one of my favorites is when you have a page and you use Messenger, you can set up a bot on your Messenger, which like bot gets a bad connotation, but they can be great. You can set up a bot to reply to anyone who sends the page a message. So for example, if you're running a campaign and you have a page, you can set up for your Messenger to automatically send out information about the slate that your candidate is running on. With events, we've all joined a Facebook event. I won't get into that too much. So now into the Twitter training. So we'll go over the like absolute basics of Twitter because I know some of you don't even have a Twitter yet. I don't have like the how to create a Twitter, but it's pretty simple. If you go to twitter.com and just click create an account. So the demographics on Twitter tend to skew, this is the only platform that actually tends to skew slightly more male. And it's still a little bit younger in terms of social media, but not too much. It's much older than Instagram's. So the key demographics are about 18 to 50-year-olds, which makes sense given that it's a lot job oriented. We have a good mix of urban and suburban versus, you know, on other platforms, we know that they tend to be a lot more urban. And so that's a benefit of Twitter, is that you have professional folks from both urban and suburban environments. And people on Twitter tend to be much more educated than people on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram partly because it skews so much younger, and Facebook because there's just everyone's on Facebook. But the majority of people that you're interacting with on Twitter are college educated or, you know, further professional degrees. And so I think that this can change how you phrase things on Twitter. They can be done in a more academic way, but keeping in mind, you don't want to come across as like pretentious or anything. So the basics, this is mine over here. And so the difference between a handle and a /username and your name on Facebook. So if you look over here, my name on Facebook is Faith Gingrich-Goetz, and I put the little pride flag. And then my handle is @FaithGG. And I don't know that I actually have this as a thing later in my slides, but it's something I'll say now. If you can, make every single one of your social medias the same handle. So if your Twitter is @BoldNewDemocracy, your Instagram should be @BoldNewDemocracy. Your Facebook should be facebook.com/BoldNewDemocracy, if it can be. If it can't, that happens, it's fine. But so if you search every social media platform, it is @FaithGG. Yeah, and I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get married.
Pardon me, Faith, this is Richard. We just went through this, setting up the Bold New Democracy on Twitter, and Bold New Democracy is 16 characters, counting them, and the limit is 15. So we didn't, it was just talk that Matt McGuire was leading and other members were taking part. So we've settled, although it's fairly easy to change, we've settled on BND numeral 4 all, ALL. So that was our hopefully clever way. It's not spelling it out, our handle, but the username or the display name is still Bold New Democracy, but the handle we had to make we had to change because it was one letter too much. Too
Yeah.
much.
No, I get that.
We had the same thing with Charmaine. So her on Twitter is Charm McGuffey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it happens. I think on Twitter, it's the least big problem because luckily on Twitter, the majority of the time you're seeing someone's name. You'll see like Faith Gingrich-Goetz pride flag tweeted and see my tweet. Versus on Instagram and well, Facebook, you don't get to choose your name. It's just based off what you name your page. So don't name your page something dumb. Because also, even if you change your page name, it's kind of hard to change your Facebook URL. So think about it hard when you are naming your page. So that's that one. So tweets in general are just original content that you write, and they must be less than 280 characters. That's just what a tweet is. Oh, and then when I had referenced a GIF, this is a GIF on your screen because the little like cursor flashes. That's what makes it a GIF. So mentioning someone on Twitter is the same as adding someone. You'll hear people say adding because you use the @ symbol followed by the person's username. This is a way to directly get someone's attention. So it may be that you are just replying to someone's tweet, and we'll get into replying, but it might be that you're just replying or saying something that like, hey, I loved what you said at Richard Asimus. But it might be that you're trying to get someone's attention. So this is a way to target candidates, target current politicians, target organizations, stuff like that. So by mentioning, you know, Brad Winstrup and saying, at Brad Winstrup, incredibly disappointed in how you've responded to the current healthcare crisis. Something like that. And we'll get into what makes like a tweet good. You should put some hashtags, have some media on it, make it as much as possible. But mentioning someone is the best way to get someone's attention on Facebook or on Twitter. So hashtags, we love hashtags. From the start of like diving into Twitter and Instagram, you should know that. Like if you're not already using hashtags, use more hashtags. So hashtags are both a way for you yourself as an organization or as an individual to categorize tweets and keep a record of your tweets. But they're also a way to get something trending or show this is the content of this. So one kind of funny way that you'll see people using hashtags that really show the categorizing way are people for their weddings will often create like wedding hashtags. And so like for Tatum and I, we have hashtag Getz Isaacs because that's going to be our last name. You should look that up if you're categorizing and you want to choose a hashtag that's not already being used. So if hashtag Bold New Democracy is already being used by other people or it's kind of messy, then you want your hashtag to be, you know, democracy for all. Well, that one's probably being used too, but search something that isn't already being used. So related to that, as a group, I think it's smart to choose a hashtag or ideally multiple hashtags that you're going to use in most of your tweets to organize. So if you're aimed at, so one that for our future use, for an example, is all of our voter engagement and trying to get people to vote, we use hashtag be a voter. And so that was one that, you know, when we were sharing information about registration, getting to vote in the primary, whatnot, use hashtag be a voter. And then hashtags can be used to get your tweet more attention based on what's trending. And so when you look at your Twitter, we'll show some visuals, you'll see what's trending in the area. And so if something's trending and you have a tweet that can be related to it, even if you scheduled a tweet that's slightly different, if you can tweak it and use one of those hashtags that's trending, your tweet is, you know, threefold more likely to get attention and get engagement.
Faith, there is a question about hashtags.
Yes.
We know they're effective on Twitter. What about Facebook? You often see people put a hashtag on Facebook. Is that doing the same thing?
It's not. So it's not effective on Facebook, but people aren't searching Facebook for hashtags. Just statistically, people just search for the thing or look for tags on Facebook. So on Facebook, if you would have hashtagged Bold New Democracy, on like one of Charmaine's posts, like hashtag Bold New Democracy, endorse Charmaine, it'd be much better to just tag Bold New Democracy's page. Or at the end, I don't want to say this in a mean way, but a lot of times I think for the younger generation, when we see hashtags on Facebook, it's usually older folks that are just putting it on all of their social media platforms. Because hashtags were created on Twitter and then brought to Instagram. And it was kind of like later on Facebook realized, well, some people are using these. We'll make it so that hashtags still light up blue on Facebook, but that's really it. It's not like they're really categorized in any meaningful way, the same way that they are on Twitter. Yeah, but it doesn't hurt to put them. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was a great explanation. A quick follow-up is, so if you tweet, does it just go out into the universe, and how do you get someone to read your tweets? Yeah,
so that's the biggest question. It does just go out onto your dashboard. This is assuming that your Twitter is public. All of this training is assuming that your social media is public. If it's not, then you're going to have to work a lot harder to get people to follow you. You'll have to, you know, send emails that include it. Someone has to be directly searching for you. You have to accept it, blah, blah, blah. I recommend if you're trying to use your social media for activism or organizing in any way, just make it public. Don't post anything that you wouldn't be comfortable with it being public. But ultimately, the way to get people to look at it is to just keep improving your engagement. All social media is about algorithms, and they're always changing the algorithms, and we keep changing our tactics. So what I'm telling you to do at this point is just the best practices as of, is it April 11th? April 11th at 10:45 a.m. You know, in theory, Twitter could tomorrow change their algorithm and say, nah, we're going back to just the order everything was tweeted in. So that's how Twitter used to be. It used to be like when you tweeted, it went to the top of the dashboard and it was all chronological. And I think it was about a year and a half ago, it switched, actually it was far longer than a year and a half ago because I was an undergrad when this happened. It was like 3 years ago, they changed it. And it's now what tweets they think the individual who's looking at their Twitter will like the best. So, you know, for me, I engage a lot with tweets about politics, mostly progressive politics, a lot of Cincinnati-based things, and a lot of musical theater things. So when I'm on Twitter, I'll have tweets pop up even from people that I don't follow that Twitter thinks I'll like. So, you know, like I wasn't already following the editor-in-chief of City Beat, and I kept getting Nick's tweets come up on mine, and I was liking them a lot, and Twitter was like, you should follow this person. And so then I followed him. And so that's also where hashtags come into play. that people are usually searching hashtags or using hashtags of things that they're interested in. And so that's also how you can get more attention to yours. Also, just, by including media, by retweeting, we'll get into all of those things. But that's kind of the basic first answer. But to dive in deeper, so this is an example of a tweet that I did where it was right after Elizabeth Warren had dropped out. And, I wrote like, I'm so excited for when we see a nominees campaign announcement who has one of these pictures as a young girl. So this was a good tweet because it was, it appealed to people's emotions. It had 4 pictures on it, all of which are very striking. They catch someone's eye, and they included the 3 main hashtags that were trending at the time. And so I looked on the side, I saw, okay, what, because in my mind, I would have just hashtagged Elizabeth Warren. But I saw the hashtags that were trending were, thank you, Elizabeth Warren, thank you, Warren. And so those were the 3 hashtags that I included. I'd say on Twitter, you never want to use more than 4 hashtags, and that's even pushing it. Ideally is 2. 2 is about what people see and aren't distracted by. Because when you're just looking at a tweet in your feed, you don't want a hashtag to be the main thing. You want your words and tags in the media to be the main thing. So in terms of media, GIFs are particularly easy because you can just search for them on Twitter. When you are creating your tweet, there's a little button that shows like I should have put a visual of this, that shows a picture. You just click on that and you can search for a GIF of what you want. So on this one, say I hadn't put these pictures, I could search for a GIF that was just like, nevertheless, she persisted, and get like a cute little flashy GIF of that. So having some sort of media on your tweet leads to a 30% or more increase in engagement with that tweet. And so I didn't include this on the list, but this can also include links to articles now that Twitter shows a preview of the article.
Yeah. So Faith, just to let you know, there are lots of questions about the hashtags. This is great. So David Kachian has sort of jumped in with some answers to the questions about how do you know what's trending? How do you find that? Can you create your own hashtags? Richard is asking for a definition of GIF. So David said that hashtags, you can see what's trending in your feed. And the question was, did you know Elizabeth Warren's hashtags because you follow her? Or how did you find out that what was trending? And Let me see if I can, let's see. Oh, and Richard is asking for some examples of great hashtags. So there's a lot of interest in this, and everyone else who has an interest, I would recommend that you glance at the chat because there's been some good answers here as well as questions.
Yeah, so we will get more into that later with the Instagram part in terms of what makes a good hashtag. But while in the Twitter section, and to the Instagram one, those will be good hashtags on Twitter too. So to answer the trending question, like David said, it's in your feed. When you pull up Twitter, actually, you know what, I'll just pull up my Twitter really quick to show people. People can still see the screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I pulled up twitter.com. And so when you look over to the right, you can see Cincinnati trends. So right now in Cincinnati, there's hashtag Catterday, hashtag National Pet Day, Happy Birthday, Brandon. I don't know, that one's more. Hashtag why I'm not voting for Joe, hashtag Trump COVID fails. You can see over there, and you can show more. You can also change what trends you would like to see. So I like showing content in my location in Cincinnati. You can also change it to trends for you based on your location and who you follow. You can change, I want to see what's trending in Ireland right now. So in Ireland right now, hashtag shine your light or hashtag COVID_19 Ireland is trending. Well, now I've messed up. I need to put Cincinnati back. Did that answer people's? I can look in the chat. People have said. Did that answer the trending question? I can't see.
I think so. And I think the example of, how you looked for it on your feed, and, like anything else, I think we're going to have to play around with it on our own and just see what we come up with. But I think you did answer a lot of it. And Greg and David answered the GIF question about his image. So, but yeah, anybody else can hop on chat and kind of see the conversations going.
Yeah.
I have a question about cutting out, I mean, if you're not interested in cats and all that kind of crap and you just want to see politically what's going on or economically in Cincinnati, can you just put that in that search box?
Unfortunately, in the trending box, there's not a way to change that. I would just recommend changing it to location and who you follow. If you're not following fluff accounts, then it's likely to change. And then how I find what's sort of trending about what I care about is just by searching in the box. So in the search box for the Elizabeth Warren one, I searched Elizabeth Warren and I looked and I just saw a bunch of people were tweeting using that hashtag. You'll also find, you'll also find that sometimes, particularly with political content, if you're tweeting about an event or about a politician, they'll usually have a hashtag listed. So for example, during all of the Democratic debates, they put a hashtag on your television screen, like in the corner of what the hashtag for the debate is. I mean, it's usually hashtag Dem debate, but sometimes it's hashtag CBS Dem debate, hashtag MSNBC debate Democrats. They'll change it up sometimes. But that's also how to know what's trending, is just by going to the source and seeing, oh, Team Warren used this hashtag, I should use this hashtag. So this is just another example of a good tweet with media hashtags. And so here it links to For Our Future's website. It has 3 hashtags. Good use of emojis as much as you can. If you can use emojis, not too excessively. I shouldn't have said as much as you can. Don't use emojis as much as you can. But when appropriate, it's good to use emojis. So a retweet is just when you directly retweet someone else's tweet. You don't make any changes. You just click the little button that looks like this with the 2 that's like spinning. That's a GIF, by the way. Right here is a GIF. You just click that because you agree with what they're saying. That's it. And then a quote retweet, which I think is much better than just retweeting, is when you add something of your own. Even if you're just quote retweeting and adding the emoji of what you thought of that retweet. So you retweet something that makes you angry, just put the angry faces. Or what I commonly use as a quote retweet is the praise hands emoji, being like, yes, I love this. I agree with this. Do this thing that I just quote retweeted. And so when you click the retweet button, you'll have the option of just retweet or quote retweet. So over here is an example of a good quote retweet where For Our Future saw the Census Bureau tweeted and said this, had a good little video. And so for a future quote retweeted it and basically said the same thing, but said you can complete the census at home, visit this website, and hashtag be counted. And so the Census Bureau used hashtag 2020 census, and we know that the Census Bureau has been using hashtag be counted. That's one of the other hashtags that they're using. So FOF used that hashtag. And we knew that by going to the Census Bureau's Twitter and seeing, I don't remember if it was in their bio or just in several of their tweets. Oh, and so that was related that you can create your own hashtag. It doesn't need to be something that's trending. If you're hosting an event or if you are speaking at an event, you should absolutely create your own hashtag for the event. You know, say we were going to tweet about this training, it could be like hashtag Twitter and Insta training. Could be, I mean, people would be using that. You should try to make your hashtag not something a bunch of other people are using. And so this is an example of a reply or response. This is the best way to grow your engagement when you're starting out. So this is an example of a tweet of mine that like got me something like 50 or 60 followers within 2 hours. And the way that that was as much as you can, if you have friends that are like influencers or you know people well, for example, what could be considered an influencer in this space is like PG Sittenfeld. He is very liked on Twitter. His tweets tend to get a good amount of engagement. And so for me, it was Charlotte Clymer, who is someone I worked with at Human Rights Campaign. I mean, she's like a mega example, which is why I grew so much from this, where she has something absurd, like 400,000 plus, and gets like at least 3,000 engagement on every one of her tweets. But she tweeted, I was not a rebellious kid, not even close to it, very by the numbers. I want your stories. What was the most rebellious thing you did as a kid? And so I tweeted back about a funny protest that I had done that like my principal was a total jerk to me about, and I included a emoji in the tweet, and I included the funny picture. And so because of that, I got a good amount of engagement where I got 2.3 thousand likes and 79 retweets on that. But so just saying that, that sort of percentage shows how hard it is to grow your engagement at first, where I got 79 retweets and over 2,000 likes, and I only gained about 50 followers from that. But if you keep getting tweets like that, you're really able to grow your following even more. I also will say, I'm not on Twitter to grow my following. I'm using my Twitter as an example in a lot of this, but I'm not the most like all professional person on Twitter. I am far more likely to use my Facebook for organizing, but I definitely use Twitter for organizing for organizations that I'm part of or like where I work. So here's an example of a Twitter thread. So this is something that you can do by replying to yourself. Twitter has now made it a lot easier to create a thread where if you click to create a tweet and then you go to reply to it, it'll ask you like, do you want to create a thread? It used to be super difficult. Now it's pretty easy. But some key things are, I always recommend starting it by saying thread. And at the end, I didn't put an arrow towards this, but I don't know if you're still able to see my cursor on the screen, but the oh, I did over here by the 6. When you're creating a thread, you should keep track of the number of posts that are going to be in that thread. So plan them ahead. You know that you only get 280 characters. And so use a character counter online or use Microsoft Word and space out your tweets by how much can you fit in each one, what all do you want to say in the thread, and then that's how you create it. So this is an example of one of my law school professors. who also is like a mini Twitter influencer. And this was all about the misinformation about voter ID laws in Kentucky. So he obviously had a lot to say. I think this thread ended up being close to 20 tweets. I only included up to 7 of them. But he planned all of these out ahead of time and knew what each one was going to say and when he would be done. Because if you just try to create a Twitter thread on the fly, then you're going to mess up the ratio for engagement. Because if you're lucky, people will start engaging with it pretty instantaneously. And if you do that and you haven't created a cohesive thread, your tweets are going to get very broken up. So plan your Twitter threads ahead of time, but when you do, they're a very useful tool. People love being informed on Twitter. It's a professional platform for the most part. People love getting all of their information.
So Faith, can I ask one question that's come up?
Yeah.
The question is about deleting or editing a thread. If you make a mistake on Facebook, you can go back and edit it. So the question is, this is from Greg. He's saying he just has been deleting it and redoing it. Is there a way to edit, or is that the way?
That's the way.
Okay.
Unfortunately. I'll get into TweetDeck in a second. So why I like TweetDeck is you can schedule your tweets ahead of time and edit them before they go out. And we'll get to that in like just a second. I think it's the one like after this live stream. But on normal Twitter, you can't like edit your tweet at all. You just have to delete it. So the last like main tool that I'll talk about just briefly is you can live stream on Twitter. Unlike Facebook and Instagram, live streams on Twitter are usually just a very professional content. For example, someone from Bold New Democracy maybe would have like live streamed this training or a presentation or something big, versus on Instagram and Facebook, it's totally appropriate for me at a protest to just live stream part of it, live stream some chanting, stuff like that. Twitter live stream should be just only used for professional things. Oh, I don't get into TweetDeck quite yet because I wanted to go over analytics really quick. We will come back to analytics at the end because we're running short on time. And that's a little bit more like in-depth. Same with business.twitter.com. Twitter about a month ago changed how they advertise. It used to all be on the analytics website. Now you have to create a separate sort of business account platform. You can promote your account, you can promote your video or promote your tweets. That's another way to drive up your engagement, get more followers, get more people looking at your Twitter. Of course, costs money. It's advertising, even though they're trying to rebrand it as just like business solutions. Oh, this is going into analytics more. Okay, so TweetDeck. This is what I recommend most people use for all of their tweeting. The only thing that TweetDeck is not good at is automatically being able to search for GIFs and creating Twitter threads. But so I'll show you how to create a tweet in TweetDeck, but it's over on the left panel for new tweet. And so it can be installed as an app on your computer or your iPad. I think it's actually easier to use the app on your iPad if you have one or if you have a tablet. Or you can like use it via a browser. I think the browser is easier on a computer and the app is easier on a tablet. And you can customize the tabs however you'd like. I recommend just keeping the default, which is your home, which is your dashboard, notifications, which is where you get alerted of anyone that follows you, anyone that likes your tweet, retweets you, and occasionally in notifications, you'll get recommendations for yourself. So the Nick Swarswell, I think that's how you say his last name, the City Beat editor, popped up in my notifications of like, hey, 40 of your followers follow this person and you've liked 10 of their tweets in the past week. Maybe you want to follow them? So that sometimes pops up in notifications as well. Messages are direct messages. You can set up your Twitter however you want to only accept direct messages from people that you mutually follow each other. I recommend just having them open. Don't respond to spam. Don't respond to people being jerks. Yeah. On TweetDeck, it's also a default to have trending. Again, you can change your settings for trending via TweetDeck to kind of cater it to your wants and needs. So on your dashboard, we went over home. Oh, sorry, I just said all of this stuff. But you can reference back to this page to know what all of them are. So scheduling tweets. This is why I love TweetDeck, recommend it for everyone. So scheduling tweets is super important because one, you don't want to be tweeting in the middle of the night. No one's going to read it. With the algorithm, even though it's not chronological, it's just likely someone's not going to see your tweet. The algorithm isn't going to like promoting a tweet that was tweeted at like 3 a.m. And so on TweetDeck, you can schedule as many tweets as you want, as far out as you want, regardless of whether you're like actively have TweetDeck open. So statistically, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. are the most popular times for people to be active on Twitter. I recommend if you're trying to really promote engagement, if you are like trying to run a massive campaign, you pay the extra to get your full analytics report. And what that means is you will see a breakdown of when your audience is on Twitter. You'll see all of that. But first, just try scheduling your tweets. For most of them to be between 11 to 3, and then a few in the evening, a few in the early morning. And I would say basically none between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And so you can just schedule as many as you want ahead of time. And so you can still add images and video and links to TweetDeck, but it's harder to add GIFs because you have to then save the GIF. And I know sometimes GIFs just don't work on my computer, and I know if I have problems with it, some more novice people might have some problems with GIFs. But I think that the benefits of using TweetDeck far outweigh the few cons.
So Faith, I have a quick question about the TweetDeck. We have not been using that, but we're going to look into it. So if we would start it now, would it go back and capture information on something we've already done, or is this a going forward?
So TweetDeck doesn't really capture information. That's analytics. And like, I would recommend you stick around and look at that.
Okay.
At the end, we'll go over that. Yeah. But TweetDeck won't. Now Twitter does have a way to schedule tweets. It's very convoluted. A lot of times it screws up. But if you happen to already have scheduled tweets on the Twitter platform, TweetDeck won't mess anything up with that. Same with Hootsuite, but Hootsuite costs money and it's the same thing. So yeah. Are there any other Twitter questions at the moment? If it's about hashtags, we will get into what makes a good hashtag in the Instagram section.
Faith, Richard had a question in the chat a while back I thought was interesting about how Donald Trump has affected.
That's what I was going to ask.
And honestly, I don't think he's changed. It's a lot like how he affected our country. I don't think he's anything new. He just represents the worst of everything in our country forever. He represents the worst of Twitter. Twitter's already kind of an angry, bitter, sarcastic sort of tool for a lot of people. So I don't know how much he's changed the app. I'm sure he's brought in more attention, and he certainly dictates the conversation in the same way he does of traditional media. but I don't know that he's, other than brought more attention, I would invert that question to how does his Twitter use affect all of us during his presidency and going forward. You know, Obama still uses his social media tool as a way to share his favorite books. But otherwise, anything political was very much just a very, like a press release. So how do we transition? What does social media look like after Trump, I guess, is I think the more.
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. Trump has increased the amount of people on Twitter, increased the amount of trolls on Twitter. So trolls are just like assholes, basically, who get on and just say like bogus stuff just to get on your nerves. But I think also I'm not going to call it a silver lining because I don't want to place any sort of positive or negative on it, but I think that there is absolutely a difference now in the ways that we use social media as a formal tool. So, even from a legal perspective, it's bringing up a lot of legal questions of, okay, well, Trump tweeted that this is so, is this basically an executive order? And so that's something to consider. And luckily we haven't super had to address that because almost every time it's been followed up by some sort of formal executive order or announcement by the Department of Defense or something like that. But he has changed the way that we look at social media as not just a tool of entertainment, but as we are putting our policies out there. We are putting our formal beliefs out there. So even the way that organizations and political figures used to use social media, like you said, it was for entertainment mostly and for getting some information out there, but it wasn't about, or getting some education out there versus information, with that distinction being, this is something that is actually making a set change. So, the city of Cincinnati used to not just tweet out in our session today, we decided to, what's a good example of something city council's done recently? I'm blanking on this example, but we decided no more plastic bags. I know that hasn't been set yet, but that used to be something that there was a formal press release and people looked to the Enquirer and looked to their news station to report on that, or went to C-SPAN, which they didn't even used to have that. But now live streams are expected on all social media, and getting the information that happens out right away is expected. One big difference that I know I've seen just in the past few years, and this isn't necessarily due to Trump, but it's a massive change that we've seen, is it used to be with the Supreme Court making a decision, people went to SCOTUS blog or listened to the recording when it was released later in the day, read the transcript when it was posted, and now there's an expectation that the people right outside of the Supreme Court will just put the short 280 character court decision out on Twitter right away. And, I think that Trump isn't necessarily the spark of that, but he's an example of one of the results of that, of the way that we treat social media as a formal communication platform now.
So Faith, one other question here. You mentioned trolls on Facebook. When you get something that is just like a response, not just a negative response to a Facebook post, but something that uses foul language or something, you can hide that from the feed.
Yeah.
And is there a comparable way if somebody responds to something that is truly offensive that you can hide a response?
So there's not a way to just hide it yourself. I will say that Twitter takes it pretty seriously, and self-censors a little bit. Actually, I can show a good example of this. So on that tweet that went popular of mine, I got some trolls, and you can see what Twitter chooses to do is, so on the show more replies, okay, it might be too long ago, never mind. But when you first tweet something, it'll have a little display that says, like, the tweets below this may be offensive in nature. And it sometimes flags ones that just use like the F word, even if it's positive. It's like, this is so effing great. You know, like it still might tag that, but it would also tag one, you know, like I got one on that was like, damn, you're a fat pig or something like that, where it was like, hey, by the way, this is offensive. And you do have the ability to report people for anything that's like truly heinous, but unfortunately there's not a way to just hide it from the feed. Yeah, but
Okay, thanks.
yeah. So are we ready for Instagram? Are there any?
I had one more I thought might be relevant for Twitter, especially for local politics. As far as the search tool, it is a lot more than trending topics. How specific and localized can be is really great. For a non-political example, during Houston floodings a couple years back, I was able to search, trying to find anyone tweeting about my mom's specific neighborhood. I couldn't really get her on the phone, but I could find people, you know, down to her very small neighborhood who were tweeting about this, not from searching a trending topic, but searching the right combination of words. It's more effective than Google in some cases. And I was able to meet a couple people and stay in touch with them to try to figure out what was going on in my mom's neighborhood. In the same way, you know, a school board candidate is probably not going to be able to get to be a trending topic, but you can search the right names or words and find people posting about a local candidate and then engage in discussion with them, see what they're talking about, follow them, see who they're following. And so the search tool can be really useful, you know, what's trending.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recommend, especially in Cincinnati, when you're talking about something that's in a neighborhood, include the neighborhood name. We're so driven by neighborhoods. And that brings up another thing to search, and just emphasizing, if you're promoting someone in your tweet, search that person and see what other people are saying. So, you know, if other people are tweeting about like Carolyn Jones and putting like #leader or something like that, then okay, you see a bunch of other people are saying this, or a bunch of other people are just using this word. You don't even have to use like the hashtag. But if you search what's the phrasing that people are using to talk about this event, but yeah, it's also great for finding out information. I agree, Dan. Anything else about Twitter? We're gonna have to like breeze through this Instagram, which I'm very nervous about because it's far more in depth. So we will move on to Instagram. So the big picture, the audience demographics skew younger. There are niche accounts, meme pages, and influencers are a much bigger deal on Instagram. The content is visual, but captions are important. It's all about visual storytelling. So use it to build a relationship with your audience. So the Instagram demographics are, there are more than 1 billion monthly active users. The largest age category is 18 to 24. It's slightly more women. It has a much stronger skew to be urban. I don't remember the numbers, but it's like a lot more urban folks are on it than rural folks. The basics of it are that it's all visual, it's about pictures. A lot of the language from Twitter is the same on Instagram. You have a handle / username. You have your normal name, hashtags, followers. Hashtags, I think, are more important on Instagram because people are following hashtags on Instagram. They are much better for categorizing on Instagram than they are on Twitter, which is ironic because Twitter was what started hashtags, and I think Instagram perfected hashtags. And we'll get into best hashtag practices. Rather than a mention, it's a tag. So you don't mention someone in your caption, you tag them in your caption, and you can also tag them in the photo. And this is still a great way to get someone's attention, just like it is on Twitter. It's primarily used from your phone. So where on Twitter, you can use it on your phone, it's a lot easier to send out tweets from your computer or your tablet. You can't post on Instagram from your computer.
So Faith, just real quickly, one person has asked if maybe we should do a whole separate session on Instagram because you say it's pretty involved and we only have like 10 minutes left. So that's one suggestion. A couple of people had to drop off. Everybody is saying, great job, Faith. This has been awesome. But so I just want to throw out to you, to Richard as the host, if
it's up to Richard. I would be happy to. And if we want, then that I could then go back to the analytics for Twitter. But
yes, I think it's been so valuable for me, and thank you, Mary Carol, for following up with those that are leaving, that I think doing this with more depth, and we can actually loop back and touch on some of the things that we missed before. To clarify, it's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and so that was Greg's suggestion first, and he said, yes, please stay on Twitter, and maybe go to the analytics. I would sure appreciate it. This has been so wonderful, Faith. And I personally would love to learn more about Instagram, and I don't want you to feel like you've got to rush through it. And then anyway, so if you're willing to do it, I love that suggestion.
Yeah. And
I have a question too. If we could use some of the rest of the time for us all to go to the Twitter and look at it and sort of click on a few things while you're still there to ask, or if we could set up another time after everybody has registered, who's going to register.
Yeah. So also feel free to reach out anytime. I'm happy to hop on a Zoom call or Google Hangouts and answer any questions if you share your screen. But yeah, so as long as Richard's okay with it, I am happy to do this for Instagram another time.
Let's do that. Let's definitely do that. And I will work with you, Faith, at choosing a time that works on your schedule coming up relatively soon. I mean, I was picturing every other week. Maybe we'll adapt because of the value of what we're getting here and the importance of what we're getting here. I'll work with your schedule and then get the word out to everybody.
Yeah. And maybe, I can I might record a basic thing after this on Instagram to send I know, I feel bad, especially for Mary Carol, you're running a campaign. I'd love to give you as much help with Instagram as I can. I'll still send out the full slideshow. And so that might answer some questions. But I think would people find it helpful if I recorded a 30-minute training that you don't get to ask questions during it, but it runs things over, and then we do the full training in a week or so?
Yes. That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that after this then.
Okay.
Well,
so there's a question about whether the chat, Richard, shows up in the recording.
I don't believe so, but I'm not positive. Perhaps some that know more. But I have noticed that the chat appears. They download it into a Zoom account that I have, a documents account. So then I think I could then copy that document or that file and then send it along with the recording.
I think that that would be great.
Okay.
I think you can also, before you leave the meeting, click on chat, and there's a thing that says file, and you can file it in your own computer.
Oh, let's do that right now. We have a couple minutes. So click on chat, and then under file, I see, and then save chat. Everyone publicly, it says, host only. Well, that's the can chat with. Save chat. So I think if you do that, it saves your chat. And where does it save it? Into your documents or download? What do you think, Faith?
I only ever had it like sent to the email and then had it sent out.
Okay. Well, you can try that, Susan. We're experimenters.
Yeah.
But I know I get it. So when I send this recording URL, you know, the link for this, I will include the chat file as well.
Perfect. So to just at the end go over analytics, this is how you can increase your following, figure out what you are doing well on Twitter. I'm using myself as an example. I'm not going to have the best sort of engagement because I don't use my Twitter as effectively as I should. The irony that I'm running this train, but I agree on, you know, when I ran the University of Kentucky Student Center Twitter account for a long time. I no longer have the username and passcode to that though. So if you go to analytics.twitter.com, you can, if you have multiple Twitter accounts, for example, Mary Carol, if you have your personal one and your on Sharms, you can like just toggle at the top and choose which account you want to look at. And so it'll pull up monthly. You can change if you want, okay, I just want to know our Twitter engagement from like April 1st to April 11th. I want to know how we've done in the past almost 2 weeks. And so then you pull up, so I pulled up December 2019. So this is for the entire month of December, 31 days. So my top tweet, it pulls up in, well, first I'll show. So that month I only tweeted 11 times. So I clearly am not tweeting that often. A good amount of tweeting for an account that you're trying to grow is about 3 tweets a day. I would try not to go above like 5 or 6 tweets a day unless something big is happening. If you are live streaming but live tweeting, your responses to something, like I'll sometimes do this with the debates, and pardon me, on one of those months, you would see that my number of tweets was something like 240 tweets for the month. And it's because I was using the hashtag responding with my thoughts to the debate that was happening. But so you'll see your total amount of tweets for the month. Some of my information has changed because analytics like literally just changed last week. It shows you in the same frame the percentage increase, decrease, but it shows you it at the top of your analytics page. It'll show you like if you have increased the number of tweets or decreased, increased the number of tweet impressions, etc. So over here, actually December was a good month because I had a funny tweet right here, my top tweet. And so my Twitter impressions was 26.1 thousand. And so that means 26.1 thousand people saw at least one of my tweets.
Wow.
And so there were only 11. So that's like a good ratio. So I was mentioned 9 times on Twitter. And this includes if someone responded to my tweet or just tweeted at me in general. My profile visits, I had 161 people, or at least times that people visited my profile. But I lost 4 followers during the month of December. And that includes that I got some new ones that month. But overall, I still lost 4 followers that month. And so you can see, oh, well, that one's there, sorry. So you can see the top tweet, and you can see how many it got 9 retweets and 95 likes. And so that was just a funny post that I posted about, I saw a movie trailer or a movie poster for the movie The Gentleman. And I joked, I was like, do you think The Gentleman, a film by Guy Ritchie, will pass the Bechdel test? Which I knew would be good for my target audience, a lot of politically minded people and a lot of lesbians. So that's why that one got a good amount of engagement. My top mention was just someone responding with just a GIF. And then my top follower was Nick Swartzel, the example I've been using, the editor of City Beat. And he was my top follower because he has about 2,400 people following him. And then my top media tweet was about like a doppelganger thing. And so this is like a tweet that you've used media on during the month that received the most engagement. Okay. But so, actually I should have gone into this more. I'm just going to pull up analytics to show this. So again, analytics has changed. I don't love that. There used to be a whole audience section, but now you have to pay for that content. But so you can see, I've only tweeted 8 times this month, or in the past 28 days, and that is a 20% increase or decrease since I tweeted last month. This month, my Twitter impressions, the amount of like proportional has increased by 53%. My profile visits, though, has decreased. So this means I have a tweet that a lot of people who aren't my followers are seeing, or that aren't something that people like the tweet enough to see it and engage with it, but they don't like it enough to see more about me. So that's why that's decreasing. And so when you click on tweets, this is where you can see some of the differences, your engagement rate, the amount of, oh, this is super good. If you, I forgot that they did add this. So they took away the audience section. So the audience section used to tell you the demographics of all of your followers. So it used to tell you, okay, you have like 80% of my followers, when I last looked at analytics, when it had the audience section, 80% of my followers were women. And like 70% of them were 20 to 30 years old. You can still get this information, but you have to pay for it from like other sources. But it's new that you can see your link clicks. So if you include a link in any of your tweets, you can see the number of times that it was clicked. This is something that I think Twitter got from Instagram. Instagram analytics are, oh, chef's kiss. And Instagram are so good. Wait till we get to that training. You will love Instagram by the end of it because their analytics help you grow so quickly. And Twitter is kind of, they're not trying to do the opposite. They're just trying to market themselves. They're trying to make more money and try to get more people to sign up for Twitter ads. But you see your link clicks, you'll know which, you know, if you tweet and you tweet something from the New York Times about an issue and you tweet one from Cincinnati Enquirer, you can see, okay, the Cincinnati Enquirer one got 12 clicks and I just checked it and the New York Times only got 2. And so you could know like what's the best source. And you can also know if you're trying to build power, get people to do things, you can know, okay, we had 20 people click on the registration link and presumably register to vote. So that's why I love that one. Mm-hmm. You can also export the data by tweet or by day. So if you have a tweet that goes super popular, let's see if I can choose a good one to use as an example. We'll pull it up. That opens up. Well, I don't know what I just. Oh, my Microsoft is messed up. But just believe me, you can export the data and it takes it into an Excel. If you are Excel savvy, then you'll know how to use that to create graphs and whatnot, which is great. Quickly, we'll go to the Twitter ads. So this is where you can go to get more of your information. The like resources and guides are helpful. The basics, you know, you can do like intro to Twitter, create a profile, whatnot. So now this is where you can analyze your performance a little bit better. But unfortunately, I don't think you have to pay for a business Twitter account, but they keep wanting you to like pay for ads. Oh, hold on. Maybe we can. Okay, well, I might have to come back because they like literally just changed this last week. It used to be analytics said everything. And it looks like there could possibly be a way to see your audience insights without actually having to pay for an ad, but maybe not. So we'll see. Oh no, it's saying the same thing that it was last week. So it's saying like at the top, you should see your followers, and that's no longer there. So actually even like they just changed this, so they hadn't even updated their website. But like I said, once that's back, use your audience, know who you are targeting, change your tweets as such. If you know that the majority of your followers are women, do some stereotyping and, you know, make your tweets targeted towards them. Okay, are there any other questions right now?
I have one that
Yes.
About how much time, and if Dan Lancelota, how much time would you on average give to Twitter? And if for those of us that are just learning, what would be your suggestion of time to invest in the learning curve?
I'd say, I think a lot more in the beginning stages just to increase your comfort with it. Mm-hmm. But I'd say, so the person who runs For Our Future's Twitter account usually dedicates about, I'd say about 5 hours a week to the Twitter. And that's because she schedules all of our tweets throughout the week and then is only logging back on to, you know, like respond to other people, engage with other people, and respond to things happening in the moment. So I'd say it's wise to sit down, dedicate about an hour to scheduling the tweets that you want to get out once you've made your sort of game plan for the week. These are Bold New Democracy's goals for the week. We want to do X, Y, Z. This is like our campaign's goals for the week. So we know by Wednesday, we want to have reached XYZ amount of people and be able to have this tweet scheduled for them to see. And then throughout the week, space out about 4 hours in like 20 to 30 minute time slots. You know, so I like logging into social media when I wake up and in the evening before bed. I know that's like not what the recommends for mental health and wellness. I'm not going to recommend you do that. But, you know, a lot of people like their lunch break. That's why 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. is the peak time. And so at that time, just log in for 10 minutes and see what you see, like some tweets that fit what you're trying to see, because it's all about that algorithm. And that's what's important in the early stages, is to build the right algorithm. Don't like things that you don't like, or you're going to be stuck seeing that stuff.
Terrific. Thank you, Susan.
The response to that.
Oh yeah, Dan first and then Susan.
I'm sorry. My response to that was way too much time on Twitter. You know, I'll just lazily look through it, you know, once an hour or so. Same way a lot of people use Facebook. But, so you might follow it enough to stay on top of whatever you're following it for, whether it be business, sports, entertainment. And certainly that's going to change depending on what's happening in those sort of, but it is really great. I joked before about there's not that many events that we all watch together right now. And whether it's award shows, big sports games, or whatever your local sports interest is, or presidential debates, it's a great, it makes live events a lot more fun. That's probably when I actually enjoy Twitter the most, is during something that everyone is talking about, and you can connect that way. So
I agree. I love a good live tweeting session.
Yeah, Susan.
Or responding directly to something. I also will say I go to Twitter for my news a lot. And that's something that I don't know if I said it quite overtly with Trump, is it's changed that social media is where people go for their news. And I think in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? Reliability, Twitter is the most reliable depending who you follow. Yeah. Facebook, because it's so personal, and no matter what on Facebook, you're friends with your friends and family. You're not just friends with the New York Times. But on Twitter, you're only following organizations and news sources, then you can absolutely curate your Twitter to be the news that you need for the day.
Thank you. Susan.
I guess that sort of follows my question about how, for example, we as a collective can use Twitter to promote Charmaine or any other candidate.
Yeah. So the best way to promote people is give their tweets as much engagement as you can. Because even if you're not someone with a lot of followers, if you retweet, like their post, and respond saying, I love this, then it's going to add to the algorithm and say, this is something that people are interested in. And for that reason, it will increase Charmaine's engagement from people that don't already follow her. So if enough people retweet her tweets and like them and respond to them, people that don't follow her already will have it pop up in their feed, will get notifications and say, hey, 8 people that you follow liked this tweet. You should go like this tweet.
Yeah. Terrific.
Follow up on what Faith said, it is absolutely the best way to follow breaking news. And, it's always been this way, but especially in the early years when Facebook was just with friends and family, Twitter was really the only way to do that. The best part about it is I mentioned in the chat during the protests in Ferguson, or like the Boston Marathon bombing back then, I mean, you would quickly find out the reporters that were there on the streets would be getting pushed into everyone's news feeds, and you quickly found out who to follow, and there's no real-time access like that. Just doesn't exist anywhere else. So
great. Oh, good.
Yeah, could I just mention sometimes, or kind of ask, occasionally I have copied a tweet onto Facebook, just, copied it as a picture and posted it on Facebook. And I don't know if that's gets more attention to that tweet.
So it doesn't, unfortunately. It's beneficial because, like, I'm sure you get some likes on Facebook, so it's beneficial to you, but unfortunately it kind of does nothing for that person. The best thing you can do is, I'll go to Twitter and show this, is to actually share the tweet or like embed it in yours. Oh, okay. Actually, I'll show you easily because a lot of people like GIF questions. You just click that button. So up at the top, if you want to do a GIF in your tweet, you click this little button that says GIF, search for what you want. So I want, like, say you're doing something about Charmaine, you could search sheriff and put like a funny one that says like, there's a new sheriff in town, and so say you do that one when she's elected. So it'd be funny. And then, okay, so it's like a important one. Okay. I'm trying to find, okay, so say I wanted to promote AOC's tweet. I would like it. I'm not going to retweet it because I just don't want to. And then you can copy a link to the tweet and go to your Facebook and put the link, and you can still put the photo, the screen grab of it, so that people don't actually have to click on the link. But by you clicking that share button, it increases the engagement because Twitter cares about how many times this tweet was shared. So on Facebook, I would put like, love this tweet, and sorry, my computer's being slow. Put the link to the tweet, and I would put a photo of it, like a screen grab of it. Because unfortunately on Facebook, it doesn't show the preview how you want it to. You want it to just show the tweet, and it doesn't. And so you can like X that, and it just shows like, you can see, it looks dumb. So still do the screenshot of it, but also put the link to it that you shared, because that'll increase the engagement.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Wow, there's in-depth thing. And for me, it's overcoming the part of it's the learning curve, and part of it's the time consumption curve, or the time consumption quicksand. I feel like I walk into here and it's like quicksand, and I'll be under. So it's overcoming that, but I feel so much more confident that I can navigate in there.
I find it really interesting. I've been wondering how to get better local news, and for some reason it didn't occur to me to follow people on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know, I don't use Twitter much.
Yeah, and what I love is, you know, I follow all the sources. I follow like City Beat, Enquirer, blah, blah, blah. But I also love following the reporters.
Yeah.
They will include things that they care about that just didn't make it into a full-fledged article in the Enquirer. But hey, by the way, there's this traffic jam happening. And so you take the Bryn Spence Bridge today. Like, I mean, that might make the news, but it's on Twitter.
I have a couple national reporters that I just love, like James Fallows, and I just love getting his thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And listen, Tatum and I dressed as Rachel Maddow and Ann Coulter for Halloween one year.
Yeah. Thank you, Faith, so much. And we'll follow up by getting this link to you. I'll try to send this to you personally. The 20, I believe, that were here on this, in this training. And then I'll also link it into the Bold New Democracy notes and actions or things coming up. Also the chat will include that. Also, Faith, if you and I could dip into a phone call, I guess, this afternoon to choose the next time would be another step to go into Instagram. But thank you so much, Faith. This was big. Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Two things. One is the file on the chat is for you to bring a file from your computer to put it in chat.
Oh, thank you. That makes sense.
For
Yes.
clarification.
Good
The
point.
other is I was wondering if there is a group that would like to get together and we would open the Twitter account together and just sort of go through it, sign in, pick on search, just to together help, like we did when we started doing this Google. We'd help each other out saying, oh, go to this corner or that corner.
A Google homework group. I mean, or a Twitter homework group.
I would be happy to hop on that and help. The reason I had this basic training was I helped, if you guys know Gene Henderson and and Love This Land, I helped them set up their whole Twitter campaign account where they did the listening tour and have tweeted out all of the stories on their Twitter. And so like we all gathered at Panera. I mean, I know we can't gather at Panera, but we can have a coffee date one morning to set up the Twitter accounts and answer any questions about it.
Would you, Susan, would you and Faith kind of get, put the pieces together and then let us know?
Yeah.
Terrific.
Richard, either Greg or Matt, I think, was kind of keeping all of our Twitter usernames listed somewhere. We broke out and followed each other on one of the last chat, but especially for people who are just starting out, if we've got a name of everyone in the group, I mean, there's a lot can build out of simple conversation.
Terrific. Greg sent me a list, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, I was going to say I have it.
Oh, yeah.
Send everybody if they want it.
And then we might have new people to add, especially for new users. It helps when you don't feel like you're just tweeting out into the universe like a song.
Faith, I'd like to learn how to embed videos, which I know is probably a little more complicated, but maybe we could meet one-on-one or something.
No, it's not
No,
that.
I think that's all we want.
That is something I can show like really quick.
Okay.
Like, do you just mean like a video from YouTube or like a video you took? Yeah.
Yeah. Not now. I don't have time. I got to go. But
okay.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
A quick question about in participants where the circle with N in my name and then me is in quotes. So when I wrote in the chat room, it put that me in instead of Nikki. I don't know how me got there, and I don't know how to make it go away.
Oh, no. To us, it shows your name. It's just to you that it shows me.
Well, when I went in the chat though, that's what it put. And everybody else, when they did from and put your name, and then you did your chat question.
Yeah,
For
no,
me,
I'm saying to everyone else, it shows from Nikki.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, it's just on your own computer.
Okay.
It says from me, yeah.
All right.
So we know it's from you.
Great. Okay, thank you all. And we've got good follow-up, and we'll schedule another one. Thanks for your expertise, your fun, your spirit, and your great dedication, Faith.
And your presentation was legible. Type was big. One could read it. These screens that come up, it is this 8-point type is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Faith.
everybody. Let's stay in touch.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm waving. Bye.
Hi, Bad Hair.